Hello, welcome to Technical Founders. My name is Carlos Lara, AI Technical Founder, and in this video we will learn about loops in Python. Loops are used to run a piece of code multiple times in a loop, as the name suggests. So in Python we have two kinds of loops. We have a for loop and a while loop. So let's actually go ahead and jump right into example so you see how it works, and then I'll explain what is happening inside that loop. So we'll start with a for loop first. So a for loop will run some code, will execute some kind of code or instructions on a list, on an ordered collection. So here let's go ahead and define a list, and let's call it numbers because it's going to be a list of numbers. And let's just say 2, 4, 6, and 8. So we have a list that has 4 elements, 2, 4, 6, 8. And just to show you a cool method that you can use with lists here, you can say numbers. And if you want to add another element to a list, here in this case the numbers list, you can use dot append. And you open parentheses, and with the append method, you can add another element to this list. So we'll say append, let's say 10. So we are going to have, so numbers is going to become a list with elements 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. So that's just kind of a little bonus there to show you a nice list method to add another element to a list in Python. So we're going to use a for loop, and we're going to say number in numbers. So what is this saying? This is going to say, so for every number, every element that we're calling number in the numbers list, run some code. And as you see here, you do a colon after this. So for number and numbers, colon. And then in the next line, you leave a tab's worth of indentation space. This is necessary. So Python knows that you're running code inside the for loop. So we are just going to print that number. Remember, that number is the element. So for example, so what's going to happen here is we're going to have, this for loop is going to, for number and number, so it's going to start with this 2. And then it's going to print it. And then it's going to run again and go to the next one, to the next element, which is 4. It's going to print 4, and so on. So it's going to iterate through an iterable that we call, and a list is that it's an ordered, a mutable ordered collection. Mutable means that you can change the list after it's been assigned. So let's go ahead and run this, and let's see what we get. So again, the command is Python here to run, and then the name of the script, which is loops.py in the appropriate directory. And here I left some space, and as you can see, we printed out 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, the elements of the list in a for loop. Very nice. Now, another thing that you can, another kind of loop in Python is what we call a while loop. Now, a for loop is going to run a certain number of times, a deterministic number of times. So we know that this list has 5 elements, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Then this is going to run 5 times. It's going to print each number in the list. So we know it's going to run 5 times. But a while loop in this case is going to evaluate a Boolean condition. So while something is true, while a certain condition is true, it's going to run some code. And when that condition is false, then it's going to stop. You're going to break out of the loop and it's going to stop running that code, and you're just going to continue down. Now here's not helpful to just write true because it's always going to run. It just doesn't really make sense. So we want a Boolean condition here to evaluate. So here we're going to declare a variable. Let's call it count. Let's initialize it to 0. So while count is less than 10, we want to print that variable, that count. So what's going to happen here is this while loop is going to come in here, evaluate this Boolean condition, and look at count and check if it's less than 10. So it's going to be 0 initially, which is less than 10. So this is going to evaluate to true, therefore it's going to print that number. And in addition to print it, we also want to increment the count variable by 1. So this syntax just means that we add 1 to count to this variable and assign it. So count becomes 1, and then every time we run the loop, it's going this code inside the while loop is going to increase 1, 2, 3, and so on. And eventually, this while loop is going to come here, and this is going to be 10. Count is going to be 10, and because 10 is not less than 10, this condition as a whole will evaluate to false, when count is 10. So it's not going to run the code anymore and it's going to run. So we expect this loop to print out numbers starting from 0 and ending with 9. So let's go ahead and run it. And as you can see here, so you have the initial for loop, and then we have 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on until 9, just as we expected. So very nice. That's just a basic and simple introduction on how on loops in Python. Again, we have for loops for evaluating that's going to run a certain number of times based on an iterable here in our list in this case, and then a while loop that's going to run just while a certain Boolean condition is true. So what are other things that you can do here? So you can evaluate actually multiple conditions in this while loop. Something else that we can do is we can say, I don't know, something else. We can just call this A is let's say 15. It doesn't really matter. This is just to show you that you can evaluate more than one condition. So while count is less than 10 and A is greater than 5, we want to run this code. And in addition to incrementing the count by 1, we also want to let's actually say print A. And here we also want to we actually want to decrease the A variables. A minus equals 1. This means that you're going to decrease by 1 and then assign. So count will become 1 after the first loop, and then A is going to become 14 and so on. So let's go ahead and run this. And you see it's just printing out kind of various, so 0, 15, 1, 14, 2, 13, 3, 12, and so on. And so while these conditions are true, while both of these, so both left and right, are true, then it's going to keep running. And when one or both of them evaluate to false, then it's going to stop running at that point. You can see 9 and 6 make sense for the last two. Instead of and, you can also have or. For example, either one of those is true, and different conditions like that. And same here, for loops, they can be more complex. You can use a range, for example, function. So here we can say, actually, let's print out another one of these for space. Let's say we want to say for element in the range of 5. So range is a function that's going to grab a number and give you the values that lead up to that number. So for example, this range function, with 5 as an argument, is going to return 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is going to return 5 numbers, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 5 is not included. So here we can do the same thing. We can say print the element, and we expect 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 to be printed. So if we run this, you see we have the initial for loop, and then we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, I show, so just very simple, again, introductory video, how to use a for loop to run a certain number of times based on an iterable. So in this case, our list, which is a mutable ordered collection. Mutable means you can change it. Ordered means you can iterate through it, that it's indexed. And then a while loop, that it's running just while a certain Boolean condition or conditions are true, and when they become false, and when it becomes false, this condition as a whole, then you stop running. And we also learn the append method for lists, where you can add another element to a list. Again, it's immutable, so you can change it. And here we also used the range function, which basically returns a collection of numbers leading up to to a number that you give it a certain argument. So in that case, so the range of 5 is going to return 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and here we can just print them in a loop. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions, thoughts, comment below, and I will see you next time.